What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Uncovered. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. This is where we unpack corruption, abuse, and misconduct, one badge at a time. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and if you've got a story that needs light, drop it in the comments or send us an email. We have new episodes every Wednesday at noon Eastern. And listen, we're not journalists, we're not cops. We're just people who are tired of the lies and the cover ups. So let's open up today's file. This episode was requested by my co-writer, Mary Rodriguez. And by requested, I mean she handed me a full script of citation sources and that look, that one that says, if you don't do this episode, you don't love America. And listen, I'd argue, but she's not wrong. Because if you can watch what happened to Daniel Shaver and not get a boiling rage in your gut, and I don't know what country you think you're loyal to, but it sure as hell isn't the one that values justice. This wasn't a gray area. This wasn't a split-second decision. This was a grown man crawling on his hands and knees in a hotel hallway, crying, begging not to be shot, while a police officer played executioner with an AR-15, with the words, "You're fucked," engraved on the dust cover. Let that sink in. Unarmed, drunk, terrified, and still trying to follow the impossible commands being screamed at him by men with guns and zero humanity. Daniel Shaver never stood a chance. And somehow, the man who pulled the trigger walked free with a pension. So yeah, here we are, doing the Daniel Shaver case. Because if you're still under the illusion that accountability in policing is just a few bad apples, I'd like to introduce you to the rotten orchard that is the Mesa Police Department. Let's talk about what really happened. So who was Daniel Shaver? Before his name became a hashtag or a headline, Daniel Shaver was just a guy, 26 years old, the father of 2 young daughters, traveling pest control specialist. Just a regular dude who worked hard and made mistakes and was just trying to get by. He was staying at a La Quinta Inn in Mesa, Arizona for a work trip. The kind of bland, beige hotel that smells like reheated coffee and broken dreams. Daniel brought along a pellet gun because part of his job involved shooting birds that got into buildings. The gun was legal. It was a part of his equipment. He even kept it in the room, not in public view. But apparently, someone in the hotel saw him through the window holding what they say they thought was a real rifle and called the police. And that's where everything spiraled. Mesa PD responded like a SWAT team being called to an active shooter situation. Except there was no threat, no gunfire, no hostage, just a guy in basketball shorts drinking in his hotel room. And to be clear, yes, Daniel had been drinking. Yes, he likely was intoxicated. But being drunk in your own hotel room with a legal pellet gun is not a crime. It's not even a bad night. It's a Tuesday in over half of Southern America. What it became, though, was a death sentence. Because the moment Mesa PD showed up, they treated Daniel like a dangerous felon instead of a confused, scared, drunk man. And from there, things only got worse. In the hallway that night were 6 officers. Leading the scene was Officer Philip Brailsford. Remember that name. We'll come back to him. Body cam footage shows police officers barking contradictory demands at Daniel and another guest, a woman named Monique Portillo. Monique was quickly detained without incident, but Daniel, he was forced to crawl towards officers while sobbing, terrified, and unable to comply with the rapid-fire aggressive commands being screamed at him. And despite his desperate attempts to follow orders, he was shot and killed. 5 rounds from an AR-15 in a hotel hallway with no weapon on him, no posed threat, a barrel pointed at his chest the entire time. Let's go ahead and take it back to where it all happened, in the hallway. It was a Monday night, January 18th, 2016, just after 9 p.m. in Mesa, Arizona. If you're from that area, you know the kind of night I'm talking about. Cool desert air, traffic dying down, the neon signs from strip malls humming half awake. The kind of evening where the biggest drama is whether Taco Bell's still open when you leave work. The La Quinta Inn sits just off the freeway, tucked between a Denny's and a gas station. A place that smells like chlorine, carpet cleaner, and disappointment. Generic, forgettable. One of thousands across the country. Daniel Shaver was on the 5th floor, room 502 to be exact. The hallway leading to that room? Ugly, narrow, lined with mustard-colored wallpaper and cheap scones. One of those low-rent places where every door looks the exact same and the ice machine at the end of the hallway sounds like it's chewing gravel. There was no chaos, no gunfire, no shouting, just the dull buzz of hotel fluorescents and the occasional creak of bad plumbing. Daniel had been drinking. Hard. Probably trying to unwind. He invited a woman up to his room. They were hanging out, messing around, showing off a pellet gun he used for work. And from the outside, someone saw that gun through the window. Maybe they panicked. Maybe they genuinely thought it was a real rifle. Either way, they called the front desk. The front desk called the police. That should have been the end of it. A knock on the door, a calm conversation, a reminder not to flash anything resembling a weapon near a public window. Instead, Mesa PD rolled in like they were raiding bin Laden's compound. AR-15s drawn, body armor strapped, flashlights scanning the carpet. 6 officers, weapons ready. Not a single attempt to de-escalate. Because to them, it wasn't just a guy in a hotel. It was a target, a threat, a suspect. Daniel and the woman, Monique, were ordered out of the room at gunpoint. And that hallway, that ugly, beige, nothing special hallway, turned into an execution chamber. As I said before, Monique was taken into custody with no issue. Daniel was given a series of chaotic, contradicting commands. Put your hands up, cross your ankles, crawl towards me, don't move your hands, keep your legs crossed. It's like trying to play Simon Says while staring down a firing squad. You can hear the fear in his voice, sobbing, begging. He says, please don't shoot me. He says, I'm trying. He says, don't kill me. In that hallway, silent seconds before, erupts in 5 quick pops. Pop, 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 pop. Daniel's body goes limp, face down on that nasty, patterned carpet. The same carpet someone probably walked over the next morning to check out and get coffee. And Officer Philip Brailsford, he safetied his weapon and walked away. Let's talk about Officer Philip Brailsford. At the time of Daniel Shaver's death, Brailsford had been with Mesa Police Department for just 2 years. Young, cocky, and already building a reputation. Not for valor, not for heroism, but for aggression. He was a legacy cop. His father was a longtime member of the department, and you know how police culture works. You know what that means. He didn't just wear the badge. He inherited the attitude that I run this town energy, that quiet understanding that no matter what you do, you're protected. And his weapon of choice? An AR-15 patrol rifle. But this wasn't just any department-issued gun. No. Engraved on the dust cover, which is where the spent casing ejects from, just above the magazine well, were two words. You're fucked. Let that settle in for a second. This wasn't a guy with a clever bumper sticker. This was a government employee carrying a personalized execution device, labeled like a trophy from a first-person shooter. And his department allowed it. That should tell you everything you need to know. Because that phrase, "you're fucked," wasn't just cosmetic. It was a mindset. It was the message he carried into every situation. You mess up once and I end you. And that's exactly what he did. Daniel Shaver moved his hand slightly towards his waistband, possibly to pull up his shorts, and Brailsford didn't hesitate, didn't verify, didn't pause. He opened fire. 5 rounds, 2 seconds. Daniel never had a chance to explain, never had time to comply, because the punishment for confusing instructions in Mesa, Arizona was death. But here's where it gets even more twisted. Brailsford was fired, yes, but only after public outrage. Not for the shooting, not for the body cam footage, not for the killing of an unarmed man, but for policy violations, specifically unauthorized engravings on his service weapon. That's right. They were more upset about what his gun said than the fact that he used it to kill a sobbing man crawling on a hotel carpet. And then came the trial. Philip Brailsford was charged with second-degree murder and reckless manslaughter. The body cam footage was shown. Jurors heard Daniel's desperate pleas, heard the chaos, saw the overkill. But the defense had a magic phrase. I feared for my life. It's the oldest trick in the cop playbook. And unfortunately, it still works. Brailsford was acquitted on all charges. He walked out of that courtroom a free man. And if that wasn't offensive enough, in 2018, just a year later, Brailsford was temporarily rehired by the Mesa PD for the sole purpose of allowing him to claim medical retirement and collect a disability pension, reportedly due to PTSD from the shooting he caused. He now receives a $2,500 a month in taxpayer-funded benefits check because apparently the real victim that night was the man who pulled the trigger. Let's stop pretending this was a fluke. Let's stop pretending that the system failed Daniel Shaver, because it didn't. The system worked exactly as it was designed to protect officers, to justify violence, to rationalize murder under the banner of public safety. Especially when the killer wears a badge. You want to know what justice looked like for Daniel Shaver? It looked like a closed courtroom. That's right, the public didn't even get to see the full body cam footage until after the trial, because the judge ruled it would be too inflammatory. As if the problem wasn't what was on the footage, but the fact that we might have feelings about it. It looked like a jury being spoon-fed the scary suspect narrative. The defense painted Daniel as an unstable drunk, unpredictable, as if any of that excuses 5 bullets into a crawling man with empty hands. It looked like police departments circling wagons, protecting one of their own, writing up policy violations while completely sidestepping the ethical and moral catastrophe they unleashed. It looked like an officer who killed a man getting rehired so he could be rewarded for the emotional distress of killing him. And it looked like a family, Daniel's family, left to pick up the pieces. His daughters will grow up without a father. His name will always come with an asterisk. Oh, yeah, wasn't he the guy who was shot by the police in a hotel? As if he did something wrong? As if it was his fault for not knowing how to crawl in just the right way to keep from dying? This wasn't justice. This was theater, a system performing its greatest trick, creating the illusion of accountability while making damn sure the only people who ever suffer are the ones who bleed. Let's be brutally honest. If there hadn't been a body cam, we wouldn't even be talking about Daniel Shaver. He'd just be another line in a police report. Suspect failed to comply with lawful orders. Officer feared for his life. Use of force justified. End of story. And even with the footage, even with the public pressure, even with the outrage and the headlines and the hashtags, nothing changed. Because the system isn't broken. It's operating exactly as intended. Daniel Shaver should still be alive. That's not a controversial opinion. That's not up for debate. That's just the truth. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't violent. He wasn't holding a weapon. He was a scared man in a hallway surrounded by men with guns and no empathy. And if this can happen to Daniel, it can happen to anyone. If a police department can look at that body cam footage and still decide that they were the ones under attack, then we have to stop pretending we're dealing with a few bad apples. This is the barrel, and it's rotten. Now, in the interest of transparency, we did reach out to the city of Mesa for a comment regarding the shooting of Daniel Shaver, the subsequent trial, and Officer Brailsford's rehiring and pension. Unfortunately, to this day, we have still yet to hear anything from them. So let's be honest, a press release wouldn't change what happened anyway. A carefully worded paragraph won't erase 5 bullets, and it won't bring Daniel back to his daughters. But what it could have done, and what we can do, is remember, say his name, share his story, refuse to let people look away, because if we forget, then the next Daniel Shaver doesn't even stand a chance. So let this be a warning. Let this be a record. Let this be one of the many reminders that until there's real accountability, until fear can no longer be used as a license to kill, none of us are safe. Not in a hotel, not on the street, not even in our own homes. Daniel deserved better, and so do we. You've been listening to Uncovered. Today's episode was written by myself, Kyle Fields, and Mary Rodriguez, who, again, threatened me with emotional blackmail in the name of patriotism to make sure this one got made. And honestly, she's right. If this is your first time hearing Daniel Shaver's story, share it. Say his name. Because his daughters deserve a future where this doesn't happen again. And now, for those of you still riding with us, who have been there from the beginning, next time on Badge or Burden, we're taking a trip down to the West Coast where claims of a white brotherhood and a fire department and racial discrimination in 2 different police agencies will have you saying, "Really, America?" Until then, stay safe, stay angry, and stay human, because if we don't keep telling these stories, they'll just keep getting away with it. If today's story hit home, share it, comment, subscribe, help push this episode into the hands of people who need to see it. And if you've got a story in your town that deserves the same spotlight, tell us. We're listening. Until then, good night.